everybody. Welcome back to Pause for the Cause. This is our Pause for the Blog, and this is going to be discussing education reform. I know it's not something that we've talked about yet on here. I was actually having a really good conversation with a guy, and we were talking about education. He's actually in the education field, and so I gave it a little bit of thought, and I kind of put some ways together that I believe we could make small changes that could be very beneficial just to the future of our children and the future of society. The way that we teach and the way that we encourage thought processes. So this is a little bit different from our previous videos, but I'm hoping it still interests you. All right, so we'll just get right into it. So my thought process is that we need to make the primary focus on teaching how to find information, like how to find the answers for the questions that we have, as opposed to teaching kids the answers that we want them to know. Now, there's a very nuanced difference there. You can teach someone how to find the answers that you want them to know as well, but we want to foster the growth of developing those ideas on their own. We want to encourage the critical thinking that's associated with that. So we don't want them to just be able to find answers in a textbook, but we want them to be able to find answers among different sources like we have available today with internet and technology and such. I believe that the primary teaching method should be asking kids to find what they believe to be the answer for the subject matter. Now, when a student finds the answer, they should be able to explain why they believe that it's the correct answer. And then it gives other students a chance to check their reasoning and then can give consensus on if they agree or not. And then the reasonings on why they agree. So what this does is it allows students to present their findings, and it starts promoting the communication aspect of presenting your reasoning. And then it also fosters the growth of the students that may not have been able to find an answer by having the student explain how they found it. So now the student becomes the teacher to the other student. So it still has that growth on both sides of things. You're not just limiting it to the teacher-student relationship to form that type of growth. It fosters it within the entire system. So now if there's still objections and the students can't come to a consensus, the teacher is able to ask additional clarifying questions. So have you considered X, Y, or Z? Or if X happens, what do you think the consequences of that could be? So this way it can still help lead them to other sources of information. But the primary goal should always be that the students end up being the teachers, in the end. Because if we expect to know everything that we're telling the students, then how could we ever expect them to grow beyond our knowledge? So that's why I look forward to the day when I start learning all kinds of stuff from my daughter, and that's the reason for that, is because if we want more from our children, if we want more from society, then we have to believe that they're capable of being more than what we are today. And so that it helps foster that same growth. So if students are able to learn through multiple different sources and come to a consensus rather than just being taught what to think, it also promotes a democratic way of thinking as well. So you can set up your points, and you've got, this is point A, B, C, D, whatever, however many points you've got. And then you have your opposing student that might offer, these other points that are equally as valid. And so the consensus might not actually be left or right. The consensus usually will fall somewhere in the middle once we've worked through the issues on the outside. So it helps foster that democratic way of thinking. Like I was touching on earlier, teachers need to get out of the mindset that they can be certain of their knowledge. How many times have the greatest minds in the world been proven wrong? I mean, we believed that the earth was flat for a long time until, we have evidence now that shows otherwise, depending on who you're talking to. Obviously, there are still some people out there that believe the earth is flat. But, I've never been in space. I've never seen it from the outside. I have to believe the evidence that has been presented to me. And so that's part of what I'm talking about. We have to be able to discern what information we believe is valid and be able to come up with our own conclusions on why we believe the information is valid. And so we want to teach our kids how to do that, as opposed to teaching them that this is the correct information. We want to teach them that this is why we believe this is the correct information. But it's a subtle difference, but there is a very important distinction there. And like I said, if a teacher does not believe that a student could ever teach them something, then how can we ever expect our children to achieve more? So this is why we want to foster that type of thinking. I said in here, the best teachers that I've ever had did this to a degree, but it wasn't their primary method. And they obviously, when I was young, we didn't have access to the resources that we have access to today. Now, what I'm thinking is if we have a digital central library that is available for free for use by all students, not forcing the students to use only this library. However, if we do have a central library that is available and it has multiple different points of views with multiple different sources, then it will allow our students access to come up with their own reasoning and why they believe the things that they do. The library could contain games, and video clips, and blogs, and articles, and all kinds of different stuff, just like the internet is now. So it'd be like a mini internet, almost like an intranet of different sources, but reliable sources from educators. And then this way they can also be tagged with what the information is relevant to. And then what I believe is the students need to be able to rank that material that's in the library. By ranking that material, leaving comments on the content and saying how valuable it was in their arguments, then it allows the students to give back to the system as well to help other students in their journey to find the answers. And it also helps teach students how to sort and filter information, and that way it helps them absorb that information so they can relay it to their classmates or their teacher while putting out their position for whatever the case might be. I also had mentioned, and I might go a little bit too many directions in the article, or in the blog. But I also say that I believe that students should have access to study fields that they're interested in much earlier than what they do now. So if we were to do industry-related courses as opposed to compartmentalized, math or science or business, but if we were to look at the industries as a whole, let's take the music industry for example. So with the music industry, you have the artist, you have the songwriter, you have the producer, and then you also have all of the business aspects of it. And if we focus on stuff that the kids are interested in and we teach them this is how this information relates to your business, it will help keep them engaged and more interested in learning about that aspect. The artist might not have any interest in learning about the business side of things. However, if the course teaches all aspects of it, then they might have a little bit more interest than just going to a business class and learning about business when they can't see how it relates to what they're actually interested in. So this is kind of where that goes. I'll probably expand on that stuff a little bit more in depth later. It was brought to my attention by the guy that I was having the initial conversation with that I might be cramming a little bit too much into this one blog. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it short. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. Do you think it's a viable option? What issues do you see that could arise from adopting the system? Again, I'm going to go ahead and cut it short. I know that time is a finite resource. I do appreciate your time. And if you like this, share it with your friends. If hit the notification button on YouTube to get notified when we have new videos out. Use the hashtags Pause for the Cause and the Fix for Capitalism. I invite you over to pauseforthecause.com if you haven't looked at it already. We're starting a peaceful protest to bring attention to the plan that is released there as well that should help with the economic disparity realistically across the world eventually. So, again, I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching, guys. Y'all have a great day.